It's Tuesday, January 24th, and you're listening to the Beer Temple Podcast.
Remember, this is what we wanted. Remember, this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again. Remember, this is what we wanted. Remember, this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again.
Hello, and welcome to the Beer Temple Podcast. I am your co-host, Chris Quinn, and I am joined by your other co-host, Mike Shalal. Now, there's a real good
you
classic opening.
You really nailed it.
Yeah, stammering, slightly nonsensical, doesn't flow well.
I think it flowed perfectly. You were just a little inside your own head.
I think that what it does really is make everybody appreciate. So go back and listen to the early episodes where I would write the first part down and read it, and then after 4 or so years, people would make fun of me that I still had it written down.
After about
and I would
6
say,
episodes, I started making fun of you.
I need to have it written down, and now you know why.
Well, it was so incredibly earnest and nice and heartfelt that it couldn't possibly exist in your actual DNA. So you need to exogenize it and bring it back in through reading it.
It's true. It's true. So we're back. We're in studio. No, we're not in studio.
We're in the Fox Den.
We're in the Fox Den. You can hear the D&D crew, who apparently is a little bit annoyed because they're not in this room.
I don't think they listen to the show.
Obviously not.
They're being extra animated today.
Yeah. They're projecting in this direction.
Yeah.
So if you hear them, that's fine.
They've hacked into the Sonos system, and they're projecting it through the system in here.
Exactly. But
Just
they're having a good old time. They're campaigning. And
they seem nice.
Yeah. So, yeah, we're sitting here. What's new with you, Mike? What's up?
Not too much. Well, my dad's in town.
Yes, I'm
probably
aware.
The most popular episode we've ever done.
Mm-hmm. Of any podcast.
We'll have him drop in the latter half of the show, give some advice, change some lives.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, not too much. Just did a collaboration with a brewery out in Barrington called Sundial. They're another kind of newer mixed culture saison brewery.
Sun spelled S-U-N?
Or
S-O-N?
S-O-N, like child of dial. No, S-U-N,
Yes.
like the Sundial.
I mean, you never know.
You never know.
With beer names.
Maybe there's
brewery
an umlaut
names.
over the O. Who knows?
Exactly.
But yeah,
right.
great guys. We made like an einkorn-based saison.
Okay.
It's going to be a fun time.
What's einkorn?
Einkorn is like an ancient grain. It's predates wheat, but it's in the wheat family.
Of course.
But it's something like einkorn has something like 13 chromosomes total in its genome, and wheat has like 4,000 or something crazy like that.
Can I suggest a beer name?
Maybe off mic.
Oh.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Finkel is einkorn.
Finkel is einkorn.
Yeah.
What is the origin of this?
Is Finkel? It's from Ace Ventura. Finkel is Einhorn.
Oh, one of them made that joke too when we were brewing it, and it kind of went over my head.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen Ace Ventura since I was 7.
Yeah.
Finkel is.
But you should make a Dunkel with it. Dunkel is Einkorn. Yeah.
We should have done a collaboration with Dinkles when they were still
right.
a donut Einkorn saison.
It's true.
Yeah, streusel style dry saison.
Dinkel does Einkorn.
Das.
Well, that's cool.
What's new with you?
Well, what's new? Well, here's something that's new. So we're doing a bunch of beers for our 10th anniversary. I think I've mentioned it here. Yeah, I did. That I think one of the episodes are actual 10th anniversary had just been a few days before. I haven't made any announcements about it on social media. Why would you? So we're having an event in May for it. But I should probably mention that it's our 10th anniversary, which is pretty cool. And a bunch of breweries offered to do beers. So, of the ones that are like pretty locked in,
We're bringing back Metho Dust.
yes, we're gonna do batch 2 Metho Dust. We actually should do that.
We can.
A Citra style ale. Should do that. Limited T-shirt run.
We can't make more T-shirts. That would
true.
dilute the value of the current T-shirt.
It's true. We should give
Both dollars. Those
They
T-shirts
should be.
are worth.
What if we made an NFT that went with it?
We have to. We gotta call up Doug.
Yeah,
How do we swindle people with these NFTs? People are talking.
yeah.
About?
And each NFT was redeemable for a dust coin.
Oh wow. Oof.
Yeah,
It's a what would be a DST?
yeah.
Yeah.
A dust fungible token.
Yeah. It's the most fungible.
It could only be funged for dust.
That's right. It's worth whatever the value of one zombie dust is.
That's true. That's what it could be. It
It's
could
a
be
trust
funged
coin.
for.
It's a trust coin that's tied to the value of one zombie dust.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So I guess now we're also doing that.
Yeah.
Great. That's another project I'll have to do. All right. Note to self: learn what an NFT is, and then create one. Okay. And then Perennial is making a beer, which is going to be awesome. Very excited about it. It's going to be a lager, and it's going to be called From Day One.
Nice.
Because they were with us from day one. I can get into that story, but they had my back even before we ever opened.
That's awesome.
So, yeah. When I was sending beer back and people were pushing back, and I had like delivery drivers, and then the route manager was showing up and telling me that I couldn't send this beer back. And I reached out to some breweries and was like, hey, like, are you okay with this? I'm sending this beer back. What do you think about that? In a little bit more. See, if it's written out, as you know, it's more eloquent. So I had written it out.
Right.
So it seemed as if I were eloquent and heartfelt. And, it was literally my first purchase of their beer ever. And I was sending a lot of it back, like 35% of all the beer I brought in on my original order, I was sending back. And
So the distributors loved you.
They were not cool with that.
It's one of those like listicles, like they hate him for this one trick,
Right, exactly.
sending bad beer.
They'll
back.
never forget. They'll
That
never
one's true,
believe
though.
this one.
Yeah.
Especially on my initial order, never dealt with this, literally a nothing.
Yeah.
And also in small quantities, which was, they loved.
You only sent half the case back because the left half had the right date. on
Right.
it.
But anyway, they stood by me and against their wholesaler. Different wholesaler now, so it's not the wholesaler they're currently with.
Shocking.
But that takes some,
Takes balls.
yeah. So I've always had a soft spot for Perennial for multiple reasons, but for that. So anyway, they're making a beer.
How old was it?
It was,
It was like 91 days.
yeah. It was like a week and a half old.
Yeah.
No, it was their Belgian pale. I can remember the label, and I'm just trying. Oh my gosh, my brain is like mush. This past
This is
like
when they were still
6
in
months.
bombers.
No, 750s is what they did.
Yeah. Sorry,
Yeah.
750s.
Everything was in 750s, and it was like their hoppy golden ale.
Yeah.
Is what it was. One of their flagships at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and they still make it every once in a while. I wish I could remember the name of the beer.
No, I was thinking like Heart of Gold, but that was a barley wine or wheat wine.
Yeah, it was a wheat wine. But anyway, they're making a lager, and then Beechwood just had a call today. I was
Heard of them.
Yeah, so we were on the phone with a few of the folks from Beechwood, and it was super exciting that they were offered to do a collab with us, and I said I wanted to do an Einkorn style Finkel beer, and they're
You know
down
what
with
the kids
it.
want.
Yeah, and they're down for it, so
Yeah.
that's what we're doing.
Sick.
Yeah. But it's going to be exciting. So we'll do. I had Jude from Hop Butcher. I asked him to come in and as Julian from Beechwood put it, he was my consigliere.
Yes. He's fits that role very well.
Yes. He is Italian, so.
He is Italian. Actually, he texted me. I didn't understand the context of this for a second, but he said, I got to pull it up to make sure I do it right. But remember the last episode where we asked if Italians were a race?
Yeah.
Jude must have been listening to that episode. It took me a day to figure out what he was talking about, but that he was listening to that episode, and he says, Italian, I would say Italian isn't a race. A nationality? Yes.
Yes, I would agree.
Yeah, so.
Which is why I wasn't being racist.
But getting that text out of the blue is like, oh, what are you talking
Yeah.
about? And I'm like, oh,
So,
yeah.
See, Jude stands by
I
me.
record my voice for 2 hours every week.
Right. So I wasn't being racist. I was being prejudiced.
right. I was just thinking about Michael Imperioli says that
Right.
Italian is a different thing. Not an ethnicity, maybe.
Hey, forget about it.
Yeah, he doesn't think he's white.
Anyway.
He's Italian.
So then he was on the call, and we're going to do West Coast style IPA. Apparently, all of like the Beechwood IPAs, not the ones that they're doing, I guess. They did one for the Hoka Shoe Company. They've done other ones, and your dad's really a distraction, by the way.
I just want to make sure he's okay.
I mean, what's going on?
You all
here?
right? Oh, he's good.
Better than all right. So they're all 7.1% alcohol. So we were going to go lighter, but I was like, hey, if Beechwood does 7.1%,
Right.
let's do
If it ain't
7.1%.
one of the all-time, if it ain't broke.
Right. So it looks like we're going to be doing the same lot of mosaic that goes into Amalgamator in the kettle. And then
So just burn it.
He said he has this really, really good lot of Nelson.
From 2014.
Funny you should say that. Because he was like, the thing with Nelson was like, he's like, there was this, crop like 10 years ago that was great. And then it kind of like bifurcated and dipped. And he's like, and he's like, we've come across this batch, this lot that like we think is like
It's a Goldilocks lot.
like 10 years ago. And I was like, right, well, Alpine Nelson is like the GOAT. And he was like, I could just tell because we were on a Zoom call. He's like, yes, absolutely. Yes, that beer. I was like, right, legendary. It made the hop. Everyone got it then and it kind of dipped. He was like 100%. So Jude and I were very excited about that. So we're going to do a heavily dry hopped with Nelson and a little bit of like 85% Nelson and a little bit of something else to kind of boost the
like
maybe the fruity character of it.
Nugget or
HBC,
Summit or
So we were talking. I talked about Summit.
yeah.
Because I was talking about Mosaic, and I was like, I'm not afraid of the OG if it goes in that direction.
Did you say, have you ever heard of Headhunter?
I should have, but I didn't. So, like Amalgamator, he says is like 2 pounds per barrel, and he says he wants to go big. They're going 3 pounds per barrel of Nelson in this thing. So, with Mosaic in the kettle, so he says it's going to be. I mean, if they say it's going to be good, it'll probably be pretty good.
I'm glad we're at a point where 3 pounds per barrel is big again. Where there was a minute where there were breweries saying we're putting 9 pounds per barrel in this. It's like, well, you're not getting any beer out of that. You made a solid.
I mean, I was so happy that Jude was cool when I asked if he would come on, and because it's so nice to just have someone there to like kind of who actually knows what they're talking
really
about.
Really steeped in that.
Right. I mean,
honestly, if
no
anyone
pun
I know,
intended.
no one thinks more about hops,
Right.
and the way to incorporate them into beers than
Right.
Jude.
Because like Julian at Beechwood would ask a question, and I would be like, well, I mean, you're asking me, but it's the equivalent
More
of
hop
like,
good.
Right. Like I was like, I'm basically a child scribbling with crayons. And like, I'm not even literate. I'm just like scribbling and being like, I made a book. So that was me. So I was like, Jude, I mean, come on, help me out here. And he was awesome. So he's excited for it.
That's great.
Yeah. So now we got to think of a name for it.
Ooh.
So here's where I've been thinking about for a while.
Uh-huh.
But then Fresh here had a good idea. He was looking up New Zealand, and he found that I guess New Zealand has one of the lowest ratios of like humans to animals, where like humans are 5% of the. It's like 95% animals to 5% humans.
Because of all the insects?
I don't know. I don't know what constitutes to this
sheep.
an animal. You know,
There's
probably
a lot
doesn't
of
count
sheep down
animals. Maybe they're talking just like reptiles and amphibians and mammals and birds only. But so he said, yeah. So it's got like one of the lowest or the lowest proportion. It's like only 5% humans. And he was like, "What
It'd
about
be pretty
5?"
cool if that was 7.1% humans.
I know. It'd be amazing. So I was like, he was like, "What about 5% human?" I was like, "Ooh, that'd be good." I said the label art potential for 5% human.
That's really good.
Yeah.
That also, like, it's ripe for people making up stories for why it's called that, right?
Right.
Where it's like you drink enough of these, you only feel 5% human the next day.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. 95% superhuman.
Right. Yeah, you feel better. It's the
Exactly.
anti-hangover.
Exactly. It's like George Clooney, why he really gravitated to Casamigos, because it was smooth and didn't give you a hangover.
Is that what he says?
Quote.
Woof.
That's why they came to it, because he found that
Woof.
they saw this like a guy who was like basically making tequila in his backyard, because they were traveling around trying to find the best tequila, and they found this guy who had a smooth, flavorful tequila that didn't give you a hangover the next day. And we knew we had to get this one, so that's why we made it Casamigos. It was right after they sold for $1 billion, and I was like, I was remembering like a line from a David Cross a comedy album where he was like in synagogue as a child, not believing anything when they're talking about, you know, like being swallowed by whales and everything.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
he said he would look around and be like, "You guys don't believe any of this bullshit, do you?" And that was like me reading it, reading that press release and being like, people don't really. And then I was like, wait, people probably do believe it, because
that's why he's
George
there.
Clooney.
He's never been to that Palenque or that, like, wherever they were the source that mezcal.
Right.
Someone came to him and said, "Hey, this is the fastest growing segment, and we can exploit these people.
Right.
And will you put your name on it and then give us a couple pull quotes?"
Right.
And he was like, "For $1 billion? Yeah, sure."
Yeah. Yeah.
God, we need to get Lou on the podcast.
We do. But anyway.
He'll never say anything as mean as what I just said, but I hate that brand so much.
Casamigos.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, this new beer that I'm making is really
It's the
smooth and it
Casamigos
won't give
of
you a
beer.
hangover. That's what I'm saying.
I
You
don't
have
like
my
it.
guarantee.
Okay.
Guarantee. So that's why I decided to make this beer, because it's smooth and it has a huge hop character and it won't give you a hangover. And it leaves you feeling 95% superhuman.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well,
So that's exciting. So that is
So
not
if-
necessarily the name,
so
but
you heard
I
it here
just
first.
that's the front runner for the name right now. 5% human.
If you come to the Beer Temple for their 10th anniversary and you only drink 5% human and you do get a hangover, you can sue Chris and have the Beer Temple.
Yeah.
That's false
Yeah.
advertising,
That's
my friend.
true. That's true. That's how it works.
Please take.
Yes.
Have you
So,
had
yeah,
any
that's
beers recently or beers you're going to have in the future that you've really enjoyed?
Well, Sierra Nevada Pale Ale's back on.
It's tasting great, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. I like when it goes away for a little bit, because when it comes back, you realize how other beers in its other peers to that beer are just really are not my favorite.
Yeah.
It's just better to
Right.
me.
It's so obviously the original and everything else is some sort of photocopy of a photocopy of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've had that. And then I'm drinking an off black from Hopewell, which I've talked about on this show in years past. It's a great beer. I really like it.
Nice. I'll have to get one of those next.
Yeah. What are you drinking?
Right now I have a Blaugy Saison de Poutre. which you have on draft, which I haven't seen on draft in a very long time.
Yes.
I don't know if I'm even saying that right. It's one of my favorite beers, but I don't know if that's how you say it.
Yeah. It's impossible. It's in French. It's impossible.
Yeah, I don't think you're supposed to say most. I just stopped pronouncing letters halfway through it and assume that's how you're supposed to say it.
Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. For sure. It's like The Sims, how the Sims talk.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, while we were bottling and brewing this weekend, I've amassed quite a collection of beers that I've purchased here or collaborations that people have given me cases of, and
Right.
I've made a rule that I'll not buy packaged beer for my own consumption until I go through at least half of the things that I have at the brewery,
Okay.
which is literally hundreds of bottles.
Better be drinking that Fatheads I got you.
You didn't give me any fat
I didn't
heads.
give you any Fatheads?
No,
No, when you got I gave you the hat. You didn't take any Fatheads?
I didn't take it. No, I had the hat. I wear the hat every day when I
Well,
run.
that's your loss because I brought back 2 cases and was
It's
handing
my
it out
loss
to
that you
everyone.
didn't give me any.
Yes, yes, it is. It is.
It's rude.
Because you should have known to
I
ask
saw you
for
give
some.
Serge like a 6-pack of it. And I was
Yeah.
like, damn, that's weird that he gave Serge a 6-pack of that. Gave me nothing except for this hat.
You should have asked.
I think you got mad at me for saying the hat's color was ugly, but
No, it was not that. I was at the Fatheads gift shop. You think I'm not aware? Please.
I'm just upset that you gave Eric the cooler hat.
Truth.
Gotta stay humble.
Yes.
But I pulled a bottle of a collaboration we made with Middlebrow
Uh-huh.
at least a year and a half, maybe longer ago, called Stay Wasting Time.
Wow.
It's a Dave Matthews Band reference. But it's we both made versions of
DMB, eh?
DMB, yeah. Brian, their brewer, was getting really into some live DMB sets when we were brewing it. So we had
Really?
Yep, we had to make a DMB reference beer.
Whoa.
It's one of those things when I was, in my early years, I started learning to play the guitar. And the first things I learned growing up in Connecticut as a young boy were Dave Matthews Band songs. So I've got respect and admiration for everything except them dropping poop on this city.
Yeah, it's true.
But it's a Thai basil beer with Saphir hops from Hophead Farms. And we made a version at our brewery. They made a version at their brewery. And then I brought a half barrel up to them, and they blended it and then bottled it.
Okay.
And I pulled one out because I was like digging through the boxes of stuff I had. And I was like, well, should drink this, right? It's not going to be any good. It was tasting incredible. It was like black pepper and like Skittles. And like it was a crazy flavor profile that was just really killing it.
Which beer was this?
It was called Stay Wasting Time.
Stay Wasting Time. Not Ants Go Marching?
No.
Oh.
No, that's like our Noma collab.
Got it.
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun.
Should we
Yeah.
just acapella?
Yeah,
All
but,
of
but
Under
not
the
but not
Table
even
and
but not
Dreaming.
with words. Just
Yeah.
yeah.
Isn't that how he's... Those are his lyrics, though, right?
Yes. I mean, I have a different. Dave Matthews was so huge in my freshman sophomore year of college that it was kind of. I mean, every let's say 90% of the girls, it seemed, and 30 to 40% of the guys, just like whenever the doors were open, that album was coming out from their rooms, and they would have the Ants Go Marching poster from the traveling poster sales that went around to all the schools.
Right.
And there was a little bit of a pushback from me, so wasn't the biggest. I think his first 2 albums, I owned them. I've seen him live once.
Never seen him live. It's one of those things you look back on and you're like, how? How was this some sort of cultural phenomenon? It's so
It was huge. I saw him at
unlike...
Veterans Stadium. I saw him in a stadium.
Yeah.
And the Roots and Santana were the 2 opening acts. Right? Pretty big opening acts, right?
Like a guy who played at Woodstock and one of the most influential hip-hop trumpet bands and drummers of all time.
Yep.
Opened for Dave Matthews.
Yep.
And the guy and a fiddle and a saxophone.
Yeah, so it was the Roots first, and then Santana, and it was Santana when he was the smooth. The smooth. It was smooth era Santana.
Can you imagine being bigger than smooth era Santana?
I mean, Dave Matthews was exponentially bigger.
Imagine being Carlos Santana, who played Woodstock, and getting an offer saying, the most money you can make right now is opening for this weird South African guy from Virginia. Yeah, no, he just kind of like squawks and.
But you're going to be doing a stadium tour.
Right.
And you're going to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
I think he'd be like,
he's like, yeah, all right,
sign
all
me
right.
up.
It's like,
sign me up.
What's Matchbox 20 doing?
I mean,
He's like,
obviously he could have been on his own tour. I mean, Santana could have toured on his own, but would not have made as much money.
That's what I'm saying. He's making more money by opening for Dave Matthews than doing his own tour while he has the biggest hit of like the last 20 years.
Right.
It's
Totally true.
We should talk about beer.
Yeah, we should. We should. So I was talking about what was new with beer. So, I mean, we don't make new. Oh, and here's another thing that happened today with new in beer for me. Sorry for you guys that are not just, you want to hear about beer, not about my personal beer experiences, but I know some of you out there are digging on this. So, dropped off, we did a single barrel of Elijah Craig, right? Mm-hmm. A single barrel pick. I dropped the barrel off to Rev.
Do they barrel age beers?
Well, if they don't, they're gonna start.
Okay, cool. I think they would do well with that.
Yeah. So they've got a guy there by the name of Marty, who shows interest in barrel aging beer. So he's gonna. I don't know. I mean, I've heard double barrel beers from Rev are kind of a thing. So maybe we'll do it.
They have 2 barrels.
Right. So they're gonna. Well, now they have 3 because I dropped one
Nice.
off. So they're gonna. Maybe we're hoping. We'll say maybe do a double barrel, single barrel pick, double barrel, single, double.
I'm not sure what that
single
is.
barrel. They're going to do a single barrel that'll then be double barreled with my single barrel pick. So single, double barrel, right?
I genuinely have no idea what you're talking about.
So we're going to do a single barrel pick of Elijah Craig.
You did that, yeah, right.
We're then going to do a single barrel pick of a Rev beer, like we did before. Remember we did Temple of Death? It was a single barrel.
Right.
So we'll do a single barrel of that. Then we have 2 single barrels.
Double barrel.
So now we're going to take the Rev single barrel and double barrel it in the Elijah Craig single barrel that we picked. You understand what I'm talking about here?
Sarah just literally pulled up the Hangover doing calculus
That's
while
me.
playing blackjack.
That's going to be me.
Yeah. Then you're gonna stick a hot poker in that when they bring it around.
Mm-hmm.
What's that hot poker called?
Oh my gosh! Remember how I talked about how my brain is melting?
Yeah.
It's called oh my goodness! Is it called like Bierstaffel? Oh my goodness! I was joking about it all day.
What are you gonna put in your bee whistle?
Exactly. That's. I mean, you're starting to really. This is stuff that's not ready for public consumption yet.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to jump the gun.
Yeah. But let's just say that, where is it? Oh, yeah. Bierstockel my B-Wiz ASAP.
Yeah.
Let's just say you're going to be hearing that a lot at your local bar.
As long as you can remember it.
No, if you go into a bar, wherever you are,
right.
Don't be surprised if you hear someone say, hey, bartender, Bierstockel my B-Wiz ASAP.
Yeah. This is what Doug told us the future is going to be. Yeah. Doug Valecki.
Off air in the Patreon only one.
He said, don't even tell anyone about this.
He was like, here's what really going to happen.
Here's the thing
This is what I don't just go on to Beer and Brewing Magazine's podcast and say. or wherever else I give predictions to.
Yeah. We're salty, Doug. You cheated on us.
Bierstockel my B-Wiz. I mean, come on. It rolls off the tongue. So much so that I had to look up what the word was again. Even though I've been saying it all day.
It does roll off the tongue.
Yeah. Okay, but other than that, let's get to it. We've wasted 29 minutes and 24 seconds at this point.
Paint a picture of the people that Chris just put his glasses on, said, let's get to it, and immediately took them off.
Well, I realized,
what was that?
Well, it's ADD, and it's also me putting them on and realizing I don't have a laptop and nothing to read. So I might as well take them off because I don't want to get too used to needing them.
Sure.
Because my doctor told me to not wear them unless I need to.
Got it.
So
That
it's
weird.
neuroses, ADD, all sorts of stuff. You asked.
It's just very,
Sane.
it
Very
portrays who
sane.
you are.
Yeah, very sane.
Yeah.
Portrays who I am.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we went out to dinner. I brought him with me, played with him the entire time, probably put him on, took him off 10 times, I'm sure. Don't even know, but I'm sure I did.
I wasn't paying that close.
Welcome to my
I wasn't
life.
like staring at you directly, trying to make conversation the whole time, so
Yeah.
I didn't notice.
I've had friends who we would have, like, we would meet up and they would set things around the room and then bet on how long it would take me to pick every item up and play with it. So it'd be like a stapler, a ruler, a pen over here, a letter opener over there. Like, how long until they all have to be picked up and played with? And then I'd have no idea. And then I'd finally pick up, like, the letter opener, and they'd all go, ah, and they'd all cheer. And I'm like, what? What just happened? And they had been betting on how long it would take me.
Those are real friends.
It's like, thanks. I have an illness. Okay?
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
All right.
Anyway,
You have lupus, Otto.
yeah.
It's a deep
Let's
Mitch
get to it.
Hedberg cut. Yeah.
Because I have questions for you. We're kind of looking into the future.
Yeah, 'tis the
Also
season.
the current.
Yeah,
The
we're
present.
looking into the present.
Into the present.
Yeah.
And something that I want to check in on from time to time is like the state of beer styles.
Yeah.
Because it's something that I think about quite a bit. And I think it's interesting because I think we are coming into a time where the answer isn't just, if it isn't one of three different styles, the state of the style is it's dead or dying.
Sure.
I think there are some styles that are ascendant.
Mm-hmm.
For example, anything that has Czech dark in front of it.
Mm-hmm. Czech dark
Hugely
IPA.
ascendant. Oh, I mean, if that existed,
It's a
it
cold
would do
IPA.
well.
If cold IPA can ascend, Czech dark IPA
Yes.
is the new black IPA.
Yeah. So we're going to get a little serious, and I'm curious where you think different things are at right now, and talk about it. I mean, so let me put it out there first. Do you think there's any style out there that is? Well, do you want to start going through styles, or do you want to say like, here's a style that I think is ready to pop off, or should we just start going through the styles, and or even like general style categories? It doesn't even need to be a specific style. It can be like pale ale, which I mean that's a lot. That's pale ale, IPA, double IPA, cold IPA, brewed IPA, all the IPAs.
I think we can start with brewed IPA.
Well, I'm just saying, but you can say pale ale. Like,
Sure.
How we looking right there? What's the state of
What's the
pale
state
ale
of
right
pale
now?
ale? I feel like it's got to be strong, right? Like
Right.
90% of the craft beer being made is some form of pale ale or IPA.
And
or
not going
hop-driven
anywhere,
beer.
right?
No, I don't think so. I mean,
Sure.
as a general category, things will ebb and flow inside of the IPA pale ale category, but I think that's, at this point, probably going to be the largest style of craft beer being made until craft beer doesn't exist anymore.
Do you think even in a single percentage point, or single digit, or small, do you think in the next 2 years it's going to go up, down, or stay the same in terms of percentage of the craft market that it holds by volume?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I think, to belie what I just said, it has to go down a little bit, right? If anything is going to ascend, it has to be at the expense of IPA, because I don't see the whole industry as a whole growing so significantly, at least not right now, that if any other style is ascendant, that the rising tide thing will raise barrelage significantly.
Right.
So if craft lager is really very ascendant, it will have to be taking some small share of
The pie's not going to be growing as fast as
As
it
the
is
last-
as
yeah.
the slice of the pie that lager is taking up is.
Right. If we believe that lager is that.
Sure. Right.
But
In that
anything that's
example.
going to be like, or if kettle sour lemonade beers, if
Right.
that's going to be a significant ascendance, it's probably going to be at the expense of IPA.
Right. It's not
not-
going to be growing proportionately and just growing because of overall growth.
Right, and it's probably not taking market share from macro lager.
I tend to agree, and I think the only
But that said, it's still going to be by far the biggest category.
Okay. Now, I think the way that would not be true is if there is a new style of IPA. And I'm not counting, well, I'll count cold IPA.
Sure.
As that. Like, if there's a new style, it would be a sub-style, probably a sub-style at this point, of IPA, or pale ale, let me say. It's not IPA, pale ale.
We'll use IPA pale ale as like as like slashes, right?
Yeah.
The way we're talking right now, those
IPAs
are
are pale
the
ales,
same
yeah.
thing, right?
Totally. I mean, PA.
Squares and rectangles.
The PAs. Anything PA.
Production assistant.
Yes. I think that if there's a new type, like if there is a new hazy, then I think its percentage could go up. It would go up.
But it would have to mean that like a lot of things that people think are going to take that market share are getting smaller.
Right. Well, think about it. I mean, when hazy was huge, everybody was dumping every other style that they possibly could,
Right.
and putting it all into hazy. I mean, it just crushed all the other styles, relatively speaking. So I think that is not a impossibility. I mean, I don't see it coming. But before hazy came about, I mean, nobody saw that happening.
Not impossible.
Even as it was just starting, nobody saw that happening.
Right. I don't think it's impossible, but the larger market forces are just totally different.
Okay. So now let's dive into it a little bit more. Like, within pale ale, like, do you think like double IPA? Where do you think that's been? Because that's been a style that I think has been on the decline.
Well, I don't think that's true.
Well, and then you have like the Voodoo Ranger of the world,
Right.
which has now made it kind of
Right.
kind of spiking, but in its own little like sub world. That like kind of Voodoo Ranger,
Well, it's
high alcohol, low cost kind of Steel Reserve type.
the sub world of the largest brands in craft beer, like that sub world, like
Sure, but that's a sub world where double IPA did not really play before. Like, double IPA was not huge in the giant brands. Like, it wasn't one of their key movers before, but now it is.
And this is not an original idea that I have. This is actually something Doug Velicky has been talking about. But that,
oh yeah, beer and brewing. I heard him say that.
yeah, he's giving all his good ideas to Jamie. But that if you look at like ABVs per dollar, that craft beer a lot of the time now at the grocery store level is a much better option. If you all you're looking for is like, how can I have the most alcohols in a beer
Right,
for the
like
money I'm going
alcohol
to expend?
per ounce per dollar
Yeah.
type thing. Yeah.
And most beer in the country is bought at the grocery level or the big box level. So if that is the driver of consumption for a lot of people, and craft beer can continually, like craft beer at a very high level, right? Like the Voodoo Rangers, or if we're going to see like triple Sierra Nevada Pale Ales because they're going to see this happening, like
Or hazy. There's like a hazy big. I mean, there is
Right.
one. Like hazy little, there's a hazy big.
right. So when you're looking at scan data, that probably will still be an ascendant style because of that type of purchasing.
Sure.
Now, this might be a bifurcation of craft beer as a whole, where the cultural relevance as we think about it, like the people that really care about craft beer, will move further away from that. And the scan data will tell you that the opposite is happening.
Well, I think that's something that we just have to blatantly come out and say is like, craft beer is big enough now that it has stratified,
Right.
where the craft beer we're talking about is going to be like demonstrably different than so like people like Don Bixel will be able to come on and be like, we'll be like, oh, I mean, you kidding me? Nobody's drinking hazies these days. Forget about it. And then he'd be like, well, look, actually, it's huge right now.
Right.
It's like
It's
never
grown
been
more
bigger
than any other thing, yeah.
And we'll be like, well, right, but I mean, no. I mean, we're kind of going to be like, yeah, Yogi Berra. Like, nobody takes the Brooklyn Bridge. It's too crowded.
It's too crowded, yeah.
Whatever.
No one goes there anymore.
Yeah.
It's too popular.
Yeah.
But that's like we were just talking before the show that like how tip of the spear, like people that even shop at the stores, not just us on this podcast, but people that come in here, and how much more frequently they interact with different styles of beer than most people that are buying beer,
Sure.
right? And that craft beer to most people is IPA, like full
Right.
stop. And so if you're at a grocery store in the middle of like nowhere, they'll have Voodoo Ranger,
Right.
and so it'll be driven by a lot of that.
Right.
But I wonder if we're entering a time where like the tip of the spear isn't like where everything's going. There was a while of time where it felt like everything was on the same path, and I feel like we're not there anymore.
No, I totally agree. So I do think that I see double IPA being ascendant there. I'm curious if that'll trickle down to the smaller makers of craft beer, because they've kind of been like not that big. I mean, yes, there's Hop Butch. I mean, they've been making double IPAs, triple IPAs, but I feel like they're not as big a thing as they were maybe before. I could be completely wrong. I could be 100% wrong.
You're probably not wrong, but it will be difficult for smaller breweries to play in that like value proposition game.
Well,
Right.
I'm saying maybe it'll trickle down into that. It's just going to be a style want. I mean, I think lager trickled down, frankly. I mean, I think I think craft lager is a result of people wanting that style of beer, but wanting it from the smaller producers.
For sure.
So I could see it happening for double IPA as well, where it's just more of a thing that people want. But I don't. I see it kind of going the opposite way. I could see it more going. Pale ale sees a resurgence, and we're a pretty strong pale ale city.
This was my prediction this year.
Right. So you think that pale ale is going to be ascendant, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so for sure. But again, like when we talk about this, we're a pretty trend-resistant city where people drink what they actually like to drink rather than.
So let's go
what's really popular.
nationally then,
Yeah.
but nationally at a pretty geeky level anyway. You think pale is gonna be ascendant outside of Chicago, or is your prediction, more like beer temple centric, or
It
maybe
might
like
have
your
been,
own purchasing centric?
It probably is my
I
own
predict
purchasing
I will be
centric.
buying more pale ale.
Yeah, that's all I know. I don't have.
You
this-
had
I
money
don't-
and you were literally at the checkout counter buying pale ale at the time when
Yeah.
you said that.
I mean, I don't have the scan data like Doug or Don
That's no
do,
fun.
but I can't imagine most people only want to drink double IPA, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so if people really do love what craft beer stands for and the way it tastes, then they'll want to drink as much volume, but probably not have the same, incur the same hangovers and now that people have to go back to, are back in the office.
I mean,
and
I was
things, so
looking more
can't imagine they would.
some of my favorite IPAs, and I was a little bummed to realize that like I'm talking like my Mount Rushmore, like my favorites are higher alcohol. They are like 7
sevens.
and up.
But that's like real IPA territory,
Right.
right?
But hey, if they were at 6, I'd like them. That would be amazing.
Well, no, you wouldn't because those are your favorite, and they are 7. So if they were 6,
Well, if I
There'd be
happen
different
to,
beers.
if I happen to look and it said 6, that would be even cooler. How
Sure.
about that in a Matthew McConaughey kind of way?
It'd be pretty cool if you were 6.
Yeah, right. But Fatheads 7.5 baby.
Right. Amalgamator.
Lunch Amalgamator. I mean, those are all like
7-1, 7-3.
I know. So
I think there's something special, like just an aside, not this is the stats, like or anything what we're talking about, but there's something special in that 7 to 7.5% range for that flavor profile.
Mm-hmm.
Like I remember being at Pipeworks and we made a thing called Galaxy Infinite
Unicorn.
Infinite Galaxy.
Okay.
And it was like we had never made a beer that was between like 6.5 and 9.8 or 8%. And so we plopped that right in there. We're like, oh, we should do this more often because it would, like there's something about that range and like that 50 to 80 IBU thing, especially
Right.
for like that West Coast, like dried out. It works better at 7 to 7.5 than it does at 6 or 6.5.
Yep.
And I don't know why it is. Like almost every other thing, I want something that's like between 4.5 and 5.5, except for hop-driven
Yeah.
beers.
Two Hearted. I mean, that's up there.
7.3.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's something special in that range.
Yeah.
7.7's too much.
Okay. Well, Pliny is like 8 on the dot.
The-
Old School
That's
Sculpin was in the
that's a double
7s
IPA.
for sure. For sure.
yeah.
I mean, yeah, they're
There's
all right
something
there.
magic
And
in
those
that.
are like I don't know what Alpine Nelson was. Maybe I wonder if see, but it's going to come up with the new hazy one. I want to know what Old School in a bomber
I think that was probably pretty strong.
Alpine.
That was stronger.
Like 9. 8,
Yeah, that feels like a 9er to me, but it also could be like a
niner.
7.
It's a 9er in there.
Yeah, could be like that could have been a 7, a 7 something.
Who
Yeah.
knows?
7.4. Like some of those numbers just feel good too.
Yeah, you know, just
7,
say it.
7.4 sounds
know what?
good.
That's right.
Yeah,
It feels right. It is right.
but ultimately we're
But
saying
if Surge can find a label of a bomber of Alpine Nelson where you can see the ABV on it, they might not even put the ABV on the
they might not
labels.
have known.
Right.
Yeah, pull it up, Jamie.
Yeah.
So, but the status of Pale Ale and IPA,
Strong, to
incredibly
quite strong. Yeah.
and staying strong, even if it may lose a little bit of
Insignificant,
shared, yeah,
though.
but
Okay.
it will still be and will probably forever be the top style
Sure.
of craft beer as we
Sure.
think of it now. Until Ray Daniels 9.0 is like, we shouldn't call it craft anymore. Now it's artisanal beer, and then we're bifurcating even smaller and smaller.
Right.
And then Saison is killing it.
Okay. So now let's go to the next easiest one.
Lager,
Lager,
yeah.
right? Lager is a unfairly large category. Okay. So but we'll start looking. What's
Let's
this?
narrow it down to Czech. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, pick a country and a color.
Yeah, right. Bohemian Red Lager.
Right. I mean, no, I think you have.
A country, I guess.
There's a couple. There's a couple that are. I mean, you're gonna have pills. You're gonna have the nondescript, just like the light
General pale.
light lagers, like the Montucky cold snacks, like those super light.
Counting those two, like the
Yeah, I mean those. Yeah, I mean I'm just saying these are kind of some of the delineations I see in craft lager, and then you have everything else. I mean, I think Czech Dark. I think this off black that I'm drinking now, which is amazing. I mean, those are it, and this is what I think the state of it is. So I'm kind of saying I think those are blips.
right.
I mean, Czech Dark, as much as we kind of joke about and how big it is and huge, and it's nothing. It is
Right.
nothing except
In actual volume number.
right, unless you're in like the coolest spot
Unless you're
in
in
Brooklyn,
Ufleco.
and then
Oh.
all they have is a variety of Czech Darks all on Lucers.
Different Lucers, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just waiting. I want a Luker times hand pull. Like that's what I want. Like you have to pump it into the Luker and then you use the Luker.
Yeah. Like a two-step mechanism.
I mean, think of the different flavor profiles you could create. I mean, you could get 17 different serving styles, each unique and discernible.
Yeah.
Be good. I'm just saying.
The hand pull Milko.
But that's for oh my god. Don't even get me started. The cascade on that hand pull
Milko.
Milko.
It's hot.
Unbelievable.
It's incredible.
We have to get off that topic because I'll talk about that for another
hours.
hour.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think all that other stuff is. I think those are kind of like the three areas I see lager in, and maybe like, do you think that there's something else that I'm missing, or that something should be broken off? I think you've got the Montucky cold snacks, these ones that are going after the PBR drinker or whatever you want to call it, and then you've got Pilsners who are like more flavorful, crispy boys, whatever you want to call it, and then everything else.
Sure. It'll be
From a Doppelbock to a Czech Dark
It's-
to
I feel like it's the
anything
only
else.
style of beer that has people explicitly saying we're only going to make this style of beer as a craft brewery, and that's doing well. Right, like the other ones are like saison and mixed culture beers, or no one says we're a pale ale only brewery. But you have, at least in
Now,
Chicago,
that's a good question. Why is that?
I think they're
German? I guess?
they're German. They're
I think I answered my own question.
that they're German.
No, it's not that.
Oh, what do you think it is?
I think it's that 99.5+% of all the beer made in the world is a lager, which is
Sure.
it is. So I think that's probably what it is.
Sure. I think there's also from the creative standpoint, it's almost pseudo religious of we believe in these tenets and that this is how you make good beer,
Right.
and that to then make something that was so outside of that, like it doesn't fit your belief system.
You could
right?
totally do that with Belgian beer too, though. 100%.
Well,
I mean, Off Color for years was doing that.
No, Off Color was never a Belgian only brewery.
But you're right. They weren't.
Yeah.
But they were a no IPA brewery,
Sure.
which is, I mean, it's pretty dogmatic.
Well, it's dogmatic in negative space, right? It's dogmatic. We define ourselves by not making this thing,
Right.
where lager breweries define themselves by only making this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I don't know. There's I think there's also an attitude about it that we pay attention to these details. We decoct this thing. We spend a lot of time on this process that doesn't behoove the financials of we just rip these IPAs.
I also think
don't
that
know.
it's something where you can, have a couple different beers that are going to move in big volume in a lot of different places potentially. And, I think those I do think it's the fact that like over 99% of all the beer made in the world is pale lager.
Yeah.
So even if you go down to the biggest beer geek there is, they're going to be drinking some pale lager. So it's a huge market.
They're just when they're good, they're amazing. Like they're the best
Yeah.
things to drink. And I
It's a guess. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, and I think the reason you're seeing breweries specialize in it is that there's a tempo. Breweries have tempos. Breweries have like release tempos, right? And it's hard to shift gears in that, right? Unless you've got a lot. Like when I was at Pipeworks, the tempo was frenetic and insane, right?
That does not bode well for lager.
Right. Like it when you need to be focused, like there's so much stuff going on, and that's what made that energy work there. My tempo now is incredibly slow, right? So like it's hard to work, or at least for me, maybe this is not the case for everyone, but I feel like the soul of a brewery exists at at specific tempos, and it's really hard to shift gears. So like really, really, really good lager is going to come out of a lager specific brewery, and really, really good pale ale is going to come out of a pale ale specific. With some other stuff going on brewery,
right.
and really, really good saison is going to come out of like really, really saison specific brewery.
So what do you think the state of lager, craft lager is?
Ascendant,
And strong as it's been.
strong as it's ever been. I think,
Yeah. And getting stronger.
I think so.
Okay. And do you think that that's going to drive people? So the fear has been that it's going to drive people out of craft, right? Like
I don't understand.
that like if you're digging like Montucky Cold Snacks, like you are a hair away from them just going to hams,
I think there's probably a lot of entry points from Montucky's Cold Snacks.
I'm using them as whatever an example, but
Sure.
like your multi-pack light American lager.
I'm less worried about the person drinking Montucky Cold Snacks than I am about someone who's drinking like a milkshake IPA. To be honest,
And why is that?
I feel like Montucky Cold Snack tastes more like what I think beer tastes like than what a milkshake IPA tastes like. And there's a lot more. I guess I think there's a lot more options for putting vodka in something that doesn't taste like beer than there is like if you're at Montauk Cold Snacks, you want to stay out of macro beer.
Yeah.
I feel like.
I will say,
Where if you're drinking milkshake IPA, you just want something that tastes sweet and palatable. And
I mean, there's always been an element of craft beers that taste like something not beer-like at all. There's
always been that.
Yeah, long time. For a long time.
Like of craft beers, I feel like that's to me that feels like a last 10-year evolution, right? Like unless you're like being like Mamma Mia pizza beer didn't taste like beer, but
No, I think like
what was the first beer that you thought that didn't taste like beer? The first craft beer that didn't taste like beer in the way that a milkshake IPA doesn't taste like beer.
in that way.
Yeah.
Boy. Well, I mean, I remember
Or are you saying that like pale ale when it first came out didn't like taste like traditional beer?
No, I mean, I remember going to like Night of the Living Ales, and there was like, stouts that had like chocolate and mint in it, and I was like, oh man, this tastes like one of those like Girl Scout Thin Mints.
Gotcha.
And I was like, oh, that's crazy. But it was like a kind of a showcase novelty thing. It wasn't like I'm going to buy a 6-pack of this.
Yep.
But it always been on the outskirts, and I mean, we've talked about Southern Tier and stuff like that. They'd been out there, Pumpkin. So,
but those are the last like 10 years or so.
well, I mean, I think a little more than that. But I hear what you're saying. Yeah, I don't know. I think flavoring beers has been around for a long time, but maybe milkshake is its own. It's certainly the slushy.
It's in the same world, right?
Yeah.
It's like the logical extension of beer that tastes like oh wow, it really does. It tastes like creme brulee.
Let's go back then.
Okay.
What do you think about those types of pale ales? The really extreme flavored pale ales. What do you think the state of those is right now? The slushies, the milkshakes, the whatever else there is there. Like there might be another style that's upcoming. What do you think of that style?
This is actually something I talked with Doug about after the last time I was on the show, that I can't see it doing anything, but Doug thinks there's a like relatively healthy subculture of people that trade those beers and drink those beers. And it's not huge, and it's never going to be like a thing that's really a distro thing or a big thing that you're like that's ever going to even come to the store. But there's the people that trade those beers around,
North,
and that they might be able to. They're not going to grow anymore, and they're not going to get the attention they got, but they'll be fine.
So it's like almost like people have discovered it, like that became their thing, and they'll be like the people who were like, "Hey, man, Whitesnake was the coolest band when I was in high school,
Johnny
and
Catane
I
is
still,
the hottest."
I'm just into it." So it's like, okay, I got into craft beer right when this is hitting, and I'm always going to be into it. And then there might be like the weird kid who like oddly finds himself into milkshake IPAs.
Yeah.
I don't see that happening personally.
Sure.
I mean, I guess so. Like mead is still a thing. People love meads. They're not going to become huge. There is this little like style, and I think part of it is around trading. I think that is kind of like a hobbyist thing,
Right.
and they need to have this thing. So you're going to have these like crazy barrel-aged stouts. You're going to have these IPAs. You're going to have these extreme styles that you need to have this like this hardcore group who's into. Who are not even like really hardcore craft beer drinkers. They're just hardcore craft beer hobbyists in a way.
Right. I think we saw an attempt of those styles to distribute a little more, right?
Yeah.
Everyone with like the Slurpee dog, the Stone Slurpee dog was like showing up every once in a while on like store shelves for like $30 a 4-pack. Drecker is still kind of floating around. I put that in that category where you drink it and you're like, this is, I guess it does taste like cheesecake. 450 North was showing up on shelves in Chicago for a little bit. So I think we saw the like.
What about, and then you have like, it's not a pale ale, but like Smooge and Lulls and stuff like that.
I think Smooge has broken through though. Smooge was like at Mariano's and stuff in Chicago.
Okay. So we won't count Smooge and the
Those are
smoothie seltzers then.
Yeah.
So you think they're stable, more or less?
I think they'll always exist, but I don't think they'll be paid attention to. There'll be some sort of like kind of novelty sideshow thing that we all, us true artisans look at and scoff at, and then they're like, ha ha ha, all the way to the bank.
Right, exactly. Then they acquire your brewery.
Right. God, that would be so. If 450 North were to buy Iswas, that would be the happiest day of my life.
Right. It'd have to be some sort of hostile takeover, though. That'd be the only way that the true justice, the true irony.
I mean, I'd have to make it look like that, right? But,
right. Exactly.
Otherwise, I'd be like, no.
Part of the contract is you have to be with them drinking will be out of a domed cup, Slurpee strawed glass.
Yep.
I mean, that'd be
yeah. Sounds like fun.
All the old barrels that you've been holding will be slurpified.
You got to slurp them up.
Slurpification.
Slurp it up.
Complete slurpification of all the levain.
That's right.
Yeah, all of it.
Yeah, everything, all the painstaking work. Slurp it up.
Slurp it up.
That'd be the name of the event.
Slurp it up. You have the Yellow River Boys play.
You collab with Mars.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that stuff is slowly going to die out more or less, essentially, but not literally, completely. Just like it's going to go. It's going to go away. Yeah. I mean, it's
already kind of gone from our larger consciousness, right? Like you and I think. Yeah. But there was a time where you and I thought about it a lot. I don't think we think about it at all.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm just seeing where people's interests are going, and it's dropping off fast.
Okay.
Fast. And it's not because they're not, because there's better ones now.
Let me change gears a little bit and ask you, what is the current status of stout in general?
Yeah.
Stout, porter, dark, non-milds.
Yeah. So like roasty malt-driven beers.
Yeah.
Not
things that people think of as
malt-driven beers. Like roast-driven beer.
Yeah. Okay. Like winter beers.
Which is funny to say. It's funny to say because they're, I think, as least roasty as they've ever been.
Yeah.
Stouts. I think that, and this was, again, a prediction I think I had, the low ABV stout is, I think, ripe to grow. Because I think English malt-driven styles are seeing a microscopic little moment of growth. I mean, I was at Kaiser Tiger the other day, and they had an ESBN 2 milds on. It's insane. I mean, I laughed.
There are bars in England that don't have that.
I chuckled and thought of my good friend, Just Milds. Or is it only Milds?
It's Just
Milds. And he'd be upset if he knew I didn't know. And
he'd be cool with it. He's a chill guy.
Okay. And I think that the state of stout is, now maybe I'm taking on like a Doug approach, like the
Lecky.
Yeah. I think there is going to be people. Yeah, it's not Doug Wow, great guy, but we've been talking about Doug for, I think, every 5 minutes his name has come up. So we're still talking about that same Doug, Nostra Douglas, if you will. Where'd he ever? He's kind of taken that name and run with it. Where did he come up with that name? Who came up with that name?
Oh, that's a good question.
I think Just Miles came up with that name.
I feel like whoever came up with that name can only see the future.
That's true.
Yeah.
So, stout is in a weird place right now, I think. I think the adjunct has just been so played out. I think that how some things you say, like the tip of the spear, like we see it like coming like before other people, so much so that it doesn't make any sense. I think you were saying like stuff that you were predicting like 2 and 3 years is just starting to come around now. But like to me, it was actually happening at that time. Our drinkers were just so kind of irrelevantly in front of stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's maybe the opposite with some of these stouts. I think it's dying in an inverted triangle way, where like everyone says Bourbon County is like dead, right? And it still sells out every year fast for us.
For you.
Yeah.
But then
for us, that's
you
what
go
I'm
like anywhere else.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's an inverted triangle.
Yeah.
So like I feel like I have a really hard time predicting it. What I do see is what's not on our shelves, which is just a regular old stout. It's just like gone.
Right.
Not entirely, but mostly.
Does this have anything to do with like the difficulty of that coming back or not existing for craft breweries? Because of something we talked about last week about just how good Guinness is.
I don't think it is. I think that's its own style of stout. I think what might have to do with it is stout has become synonymous with big and special.
Yeah.
And that type of beer for a regular old stout to be around, an 8%, 6% stout, it has to be a year-round or maybe a big seasonal beer. And people aren't making stout like that. They're making it as like one-offs.
Yeah.
Like we do this once a year. We do 2 batches of this a year. We do a version of this one. We do a variant and a regular. Nobody's doing like, even outside of our seasonals, we do, month by month seasonals. And then we do like 3-month seasonals. Some of the big guys do like quarterly beers. Like, whose quarterly beer or year-round is a stout? Nobody, except for Deschutes.
Right.
And you have Kalamazoo from
Left
Bell's,
Hand.
which will probably go away fast. And Left Hand has their milk stout. That is, like, it. I'm sure someone out there is going to be like, it raged because, I've been carrying their stout. That I didn't mention.
Right.
But, like, there's just... And the funny thing is, Obsidian... We did a big stout show with Mike Siegel. That beer crushed. It's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good. I remember after hearing that Jew, we were talking about pick up a sixer and grabbed it and was like texting me like, yeah, this beer rocks.
It's great. And it's unique and beautiful and delicious.
I know.
Yeah.
So I do feel like I'm not really bullish on that style, but I do think that in time there are people who would enjoy having that, like a low alcohol beer that you can have some that are like pretty intense and you can still have 2 of them in a night and they don't need to be shared. They can come in a 6-pack. Ideally, they're not 16-ounce. That could be another thing. Like,
I think we saw a wave of people trying to do this, like maybe 2 years ago.
yeah,
There's like a half-acre one. I think Eugene. They
yeah.
want it to
That
be
wasn't.
bigger
It wasn't.
than it
It's
is.
Reaper, right?
Reaper, yeah. And
Great
like
beer.
Night Sky, Allagash thought it was the
Yeah.
time. But maybe this
Another
is a thing
great beer.
Maybe it's a thing that was just a little bit ahead of its time.
That was 7.5
and it will come
or
back.
8 too.
Oh,
Yeah.
it was? I thought that was like 6.
No, it was a little
Alright.
stronger.
But even then, like we were talking about there were no stouts below 12%
Yeah.
alcohol. So maybe that was another one that was just a little bit of
Yeah,
it.
now that you're mentioning it, there have been attempts, and people just it
Just
must
hasn't-
not have
just
held
doesn't
on.
stick.
But the funny thing is, I hear people
Well, that
talking about that half-acre beer, talking
Right.
about
Well,
that night sky.
it's one of those things of like, because it's never going to be a year-round beer for any of these breweries. When it comes back time of like, did Night Sky or Reaper do well enough? They're like, well, did it do well enough for us not to try winter IPA
or
instead?
Dandelion Cutter, or Violet Cutter.
Right.
We have to
Some
do a
brand
brand extension now on Daisy Cutter.
Or just like, should we try winter IPA now? Winter's like, and then maybe they come back to like a something like that, but something like a regular roasty low ABV stout. But I don't think any of them crush so hard that it's a no-brainer to be like, well, that's our winter seasonal.
Right.
But we'll see. I hope they do.
I mean, it seems like you hear about like Cheers or Seinfeld, or people say like, those shows were flops in their first season, and nowadays shows like that would never be able to be given the time.
Right.
And I think that might be the same with beers now, because I do think that some of those, like, people have to come around to those beers.
I think there's also probably a correlation.
And one season's not enough.
There's the correlation to that of like YouTube channels or something like that, right? Where like when people can put YouTube channels out at lower cost and then over time gain a following and then be like develop their style, where a large network isn't going to put up with low ratings from a show like Seinfeld. So a larger brewery is not going to be like, we can, keep doing this every year because we really love it. I mean, there are some things like that. Like I'm pretty sure Eugene is something like that. But now it's like, until a smaller brewery proves that there's like some sort of groundswell, that there's this style of thing exists, and then
right. We'll wait for someone else to do the hard work,
right?
The dangerous work, and then we'll follow it. And I'm saying that maybe it might sound a little flippant, but it's probably just a safer business practice. Like,
for sure.
We don't need to be cutting edge, creating these trends. We need to be aware of them,
right?
Testing the waters kind of constantly to see if something like takes hold quickly. But other than that, like, wait for some. Let's just like read the tea leaves and just see. We're not even read the tea leaves. Just like
ear to
watch.
the ground and see what's actually.
Look at the IRI data.
Right.
Talk to Don Bixel,
or not, or like the opposite, right? Of like be attuned to what's going on TikTok. Like, I think that's part of the brilliance of Doug, is that he's attuned to both these things, right? He has the numbers, but he's
Is this what it was sounding like that one time you were listening to the show, Doug?
But he's also paying attention to what people are saying and how people are reacting to things that doesn't show up in scan data. So,
right.
I don't know. Like, yeah. What do you think? So overall, one sentence, the status of Stout is
TBD.
TBD.
I mean, I don't know, man.
COPOUT.
What do you think? In one concise little
I think it's weak. I
snippet.
think it's weak right now, and I think it's receding.
Okay.
Yeah, I think a lot of like the attention paid to bourbon barrel aged stuff is kind of it has so monopolized the style as a whole that there's not a lot of space for.
All right. Yeah. You know what? I like that. I'm going to say it's going to get better, but I think it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Yeah, we're not to the
I think it has to get worse.
We're not to the darkest part.
Right. We're like Chief Wiggum when Krusty the Clown is trying to hold up Apu, and Apu asks him for help, but Chief Wiggum's tie has been caught in the rollers of the hot dog machine.
Yeah.
And he says, "I've got problems of my own. This is going to get worse before it gets better," as he gets sucked into the hot dog machine.
I've never heard a more apropos.
Yeah,
analogy.
I mean, that's basically the state of craft stout. We have a bunch more that we could do, but why don't we take a break and we'll come back to it maybe
this will be a
another
recurring
episode.
segment. We talk about some other styles later.
Yeah. So let's get a refresh, take a little bit of a break, and then we'll come back with more of the Beer Temple podcast.
Welcome back to the Beer Temple podcast. I'm your co-host, Mike Shalau from Is Was Brewing. I'm here with your other co-host, Chris Quinn of the Beer Temple. Chris, how you doing?
Good. You've got your fatheads. You're so upset
finally
you
got my
didn't
fatheads.
have. So,
Thank you.
Here you go. Not a headhunter, but still pretty good.
Smash. Don't want it.
Yeah. Alpha Ambush. It's a camouflaged can.
Yeah, I didn't see it when you first put it down.
But if you notice, he's also Fathead. He's got
he's basically
a Delta
Rambo.
Force beret.
Yeah.
And
unshaven.
Yes, that's what I was gonna say. Mm-hmm. But not like with a beard. He's just got like a 5 o'clock shadow.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's been out in the field. He's still smiling.
Still happy though.
But I think these are a little bit different sunglasses. These are a little bit more tactical.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. The other ones are kind of like Ray-Ban-y, and these are super like tactical.
Yeah, those are for performance. Which this guy clearly has a body built for performance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so you have that now.
Thank you so much. What
Yeah.
a gift.
Yeah. So we're joined by a guest now.
Yeah.
Why don't you introduce the guest? Or should I?
One of the most influential people in my entire life.
Oh.
And probably yours after the episode he was on. Mm-hmm. My dad, Doug Shalau.
What's up, Doug?
Nice to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get that cough taken care of?
Yes.
Okay, good.
I just want you to know, too, that knowing that I was going to be in a studio with beer people,
There you go, right there.
I didn't shave this morning.
Oh,
So
good.
I tried
He
to
looks
look
a lot
little
like
more
the-
part, okay?
Not your face doesn't structurally look the same as this guy, but the 5 o'clock shadow very
Yeah.
similar.
Oh, yeah.
You see that?
Yeah. Got it.
You know,
Perfect.
Yeah.
you know what's funny? Like here's something that 10 years have done. When the Beer Temple first opened, I wouldn't even wear jeans.
Yeah.
I
You
would
were
wear
always
pants.
You were ironing your chinos
Button down.
and your button down.
It wouldn't necessarily be Dockers or whatever, khakis, but it would be pants,
Yeah.
not jeans,
Slacks.
a button down,
Yeah.
or like a polo, like a collared shirt, a collared shirt or a sweater.
Tucked in.
Yeah. Yeah. I would still prefer to do that, but I think the style is very not that. But I still I prefer tucked in shirts. That's just me.
That's because you're in such great shape.
Yeah, but now, right? Yeah, no. Well, that also might be a reason why I don't do it. As much now. But yeah, now don't shave. I shaved like every day or every other day, and yeah, now I'm just completely gone to hell.
You look great.
I'm wearing a velour hoodie,
It is velour.
jeans. Haven't shaved in don't know how long.
Gold chains.
Gold chains. I mean, that's the only thing that been said that is not true. By the
You
way,
keep asking me do I need you to take care of anyone for me.
it is gold accents. I do
Yeah,
have gold.
yeah.
The little tassels are gold plated.
Yeah.
The zippers are gold plated. I mean,
You're
it's-
eating a
it's
cheese
pretty
steak.
amazing.
You're wearing
Yeah,
a
basically,
you're full Philly right now.
it's great.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So we've got your old man here, and I've got some questions. So we had a bunch of we did have some feedback from the last episode.
A
Was
lot of great feedback.
yeah.
And actually someone who gave us feedback is in the
Yeah,
in the
right.
bar
We're like, hey,
now.
you know who's
Is,
here?
is he armed?
Yeah, he is pissed.
Yeah, he's waiting.
Oh, boy. Okay, see you later.
He quit his job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean the longer you're here, the longer you're safe.
Yeah.
So you want to
Yeah,
stay
got a
here.
strong door.
So I've got a question, something that's been that I have not, I don't think I've tipped this off ahead of time, so you'll be hearing this for the first time.
Yeah, I've gotten none of the questions in advance.
Exactly.
Here we go.
So here's the
Well,
deal.
neither did we. So
So I have we're building out a kitchen, which is something I am pretty openly dreading, but it's okay. But aside from that, I feel like for a few different reasons, like I have to do something with the business, and that could be make a play at purchasing this building, which I don't think is the right play because it's part of a complex of buildings that is, I would just have to take on a lot of debt to do that. Or I, with that same amount of money, could probably, I could, if I was renting space, I could open up multiples in a shorter period of time. Or if I was going to purchase another piece of property, I could buy it and then put in, another beer temple, in a building like the size of this one or smaller, ideally. And I think there'd be a lot of positives to doing that. I think a lot of the positives, frankly, would be for other people who work here. I think it'd be opportunities, Sure. And that's really how I see it. I was like, it'd be better for other people, not necessarily me. I don't know if it'd necessarily be better for the company. Okay. I think it'd be better in some ways and worse in others. I'm worried about dividing attention and the overall quality dipping, because I feel like that's happened at this place. We've gotten better in some things and worse than we were at others, and I feel like we have to work at like rebolstering it and stuff like that. So the question is, can you expand and stay true, or even improve on the little things as you kind of expand to a different location? I have now no idea if this is an area of expertise for you, or if I'm setting you up to just be like, I don't know.
Oh, I've got.
But it seems like you'd have some. Yeah,
Absolutely, I have some.
These are
ideas.
things I don't think I've said out loud. To pretty much
We've
anyone,
talked
by the
about
way.
them, but
Oh, okay.
Reflect on something we talked about the last time I was here, and we talked about what's your mission statement, right? And I'm going to recommend to all of your listeners a book by Jim Collins called Beyond Entrepreneurship 2.0, because it talks about this, but he talks more about purpose. So if you can articulate your purpose, and we talked about this, and I
Sure.
kind of postulated one called repeatable moments of joy, right?
Right.
So if that is what you really feel your purpose is, or something else that you articulate, what you're asking me, you need to check and see, does it match and fit in that. If it, let's just hypothetically say it's to provide repeatable moments of joy, okay? If what you're thinking about doing fits that, then yeah, go. The other thing is to focus on who's your primary customer. We talked about that too. And if your primary customer believes what you're talking about has value, then absolutely, right? But if it doesn't, forget it. So it's two parts. It's, reflect and articulate what your articulated purpose is, and if it fits that, yes. If your primary customers believe it has value, then of course, do it the best you can possibly do it. Mm-hmm. And what I do now is I work in an organization called the Corporate Entrepreneurship Community, and we work with a guy by the name of Eric Ries, who wrote the Lean Startup book. And so he talks about MVPs a lot, minimal viable products. So your kitchen could be a minimal viable product. And what you do is you take it, start getting feedback loops.
Sure.
And if it seems to make sense and your customers are giving you positive feedback, then you persevere with it. If they're not, you might need to pivot away from it.
Right.
But if you're learning while you're doing it,
and not going out of business.
well, yeah,
Right,
that's
right.
true.
Well,
but Eric says there's no downside as long as you're learning.
Right.
So
it could be financial downside if you don't learn quick enough. But
Well-
you're committed to the kitchen, right? So
Yeah.
putting the kitchen in, the minimal viable product there is the things you're putting out of the kitchen, right?
Well, let me put it this way: huge procrastinator in a lot of the big picture things, probably based on fear. But one of the things I was saying was I got to get this place more or less where I think it should be.
Yeah.
And there's a few other things that would be nice, but I think the kitchen was kind of key to it, and something that even when we were building out, we built out with this kind of let's do this, and for if and when we put in a kitchen. So it has always been the idea.
let me ask you this question: do you
Yeah.
think your current customers is something for your current customers?
Oh, my
or
gosh,
customers
yeah.
you don't have.
Oh,
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, both. Yeah.
Then
For the kitchen? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I say begrudgingly. I'm only doing it because I think it's the right. I think it's the right move for the health of the business.
Trust
I
your
think
gut.
for the. Yeah. I mean, it's
Trust
just. Yeah. No. I think that.
Well, and to that
Yeah.
repeatable moments of joy thing, the kitchen is meant to either provide those or allow them to stay here longer, where they can continue
Right.
to have those here. Right?
Yeah, enhance
Brand
it.
extension.
Yeah,
Right.
Absolutely. No, the only reason I'm reluctant is because of the lack of experience, me personally, in that, and also just the overwhelming size and when someone who has or does have a kitchen hears that I'm opening a kitchen. So it's like I know, not that it may, that it will be a huge amount of ass pain. So, I mean, it just will.
Sure.
I mean, that's what everyone says. People
Forever
who I
or to
respect.
get it going?
I just
Kind
think
of both.
kind of forever.
Yeah.
I mean, most people say, like, nobody says, oh, man, even if I didn't need one, I'd have one. Everyone says, if I didn't need one, no, heck no, I wouldn't have one. They're huge pains in the ass,
Well,
you know.
they're huge pains in the ass mostly for the human aspect of it, right?
Yeah.
The staffing and
Yes.
the retention is
Yes.
incredibly hard. In that.
It's
Yes.
always the people stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's just like that. It's that, but like on steroids.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah, or any other drug.
Right.
Usually the other drugs.
but there are
I
certainly
think
ways
that's
to.
a lot of the
There are
issues.
ways to do it that are less painful, right?
Sure.
That are like not as like we're just gonna smash burgers and hire the cheapest labor.
I don't know. Maybe. Probably. I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
So, I mean, now,
I think-
me getting involved in something I've never done before certainly is something I've done multiple times.
Yeah.
I opened up a bar. I opened up a store. I'd never done any of those things. I'd never worked in a bar. I'd never worked at a liquor store.
I thought you worked at a Binny's for a while.
Yeah, when this place was literally delayed, but I already had like bank loans and stuff like that. For a few months, I worked part-time at a Binny's
But
because I was like, but
all you
like
need, baby.
the die had been cast at that
Yeah, yeah,
point,
right.
you know, like
Right.
But doing it to learn is
Yeah.
great value,
sure.
you know. And
Oh,
if
and it'll be. I mean, if it works, then like it'll be nice to know, like, yeah,
Absolutely.
if everything does go to pot, I could be like, well, I could always go somewhere and open up a bar, restaurant, store again because I've done it.
We
you
talk
know?
about in terms there's success and learning. There's
Yeah.
no success and failure, right? Success and learning.
Yeah,
And you could be wildly successful, but you're probably going to learn a lot.
sure,
Either way.
right,
Well,
Then you decide if you want to persevere with it or pivot.
right.
as
all
a
good.
friend and someone who you've talked to a lot about these things, it's always seemed inevitable you were going to have a kitchen at some point.
Yes.
You've been talking about it and ruminating on it
Years
for a long time.
Yeah.
It also, to me, seems inevitable at some point you're going to have a second location. You've been talking and thinking about that for a really long time, too. And so this is kind of the groundwork of, does the second location need a kitchen? Do we become something that is like we draw people because, they make that weird, that crazy little bite of food, too?
Yeah, you're
And this is how
creating
you
a
learn about that.
transferable model.
Sure. Yeah.
That's all good.
Yeah.
And even,
We'll
if, even
see.
if that second one doesn't open, then you still
Yeah.
are going to draw people here for whatever.
But
And you get the
something.
franchise.
so the question is so the
people.
question has been a little bit morphed from my original one. So my original question was, can I have a second location and keep and increase the integrity of each one individually, or am I just like watering the experience down? Because eventually, if you keep adding ones, the experience will be watered down. Like I'm sure, like, you know, whoever like Stouffer was, I'm sure their meals were amazing at one
that
time.
original stuffing rocked.
I'm sure it was great. Or like, you know, Famous Amos cookies. I'm sure his chocolate chip cookies were
Famous.
amazing.
Yeah.
Now they are like terrible.
But there are so many examples of people who took other people's ideas and ran with them.
Yeah.
Ray Kroc, McDonald's.
Sure.
I mean, we could name a bunch of them.
Yeah.
Most people, and in this, I'm referring back to this book that I was talking about, talks a lot about that and how people took other people's ideas and turned them into incredible successes.
Well, that's definitely not me. I'm not that guy. No, and I don't mean that like I'm definitely the dude that Ray Kroc bought from.
Yeah.
Like, no.
I hear what you're saying.
I'm not definitely that dude. I'm definitely more like that dude
sure.
than I am like Ray
Like Ray
Kroc.
Kroc.
I'm not the guy to take 10 businesses and make them into, or 10 locations and make them into 10,000. That's just not me.
Stuckies.
Yeah. So for someone like me, who is, maybe not who, Jim Collins is writing that book for, Michael Roper of the Hop Leaf, just named by maybe Beer and Brewing Magazine. I don't know. Like their readers, like best beer bar in the country. I would put it right the heck up there with any of them. He's been pretty adamant that one location. A lot of those other ones on that list, Monks, it's one location, So Tornado, they had 2. Now they're down to 1 location again. So
look, when you read the book too, Collins talks about both. He said there's absolutely nothing wrong with being the best at something and not blowing it up into a mega thing. Just being really good at something and keep it small if that's what your choice is, But then there's also ways to think about how to take something from. I mean, for those of you who don't know, he wrote other books, Good to Great, Built to Last, all those kind of things. He actually wrote this book that I'm really excited about.
I can tell you're really excited.
30 years ago. Okay,
Yeah.
when he and his co-author were professors at the Stanford Business School. It's as relevant today as it was 30 years ago. 2 years ago, he updated it, and that's why it's called BE 2.0. And if you get the Audible book, he actually reads half of it. So I did things with him and took him to West Point to talk about leadership. He's an amazing guy, and was a disciple of Peter Drucker's and all that. But I think anybody that's running a business of any size would benefit from reading this book. I mean, it's just that good. And part of it, he tells how Reed Hastings, who just stepped down from being CEO of Netflix, said he read it for the first 9 years he started Netflix. He read it every year because gave him so much feedback on how to take his company from good to great.
We got to get you a sponsorship deal.
Right, exactly. So outside of reading this book, what are your other thoughts on the ideas? And I'm not necessarily asking you for the definitive answer. I'm just thinking, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts? Like, does it dilute? And you know what? I'm interested for any of you guys out there as well. Oh, and we forgot for the call to action.
Yeah.
If there's any,
we'll do it at the end.
We'll do it at the end. But if there's any other, I would love to hear the people out there, like what you guys think as well. Like, would it be awesome to have another location of something that you really like, or would you rather have it stay a single pure entity, a single location?
Well, I have a question for you. Like, do you think that you would lose the depth of experience you have here because you have another store? Like it's like, is this a breadth versus depth problem? Like, I feel like you've done an incredibly good job of inoculating the group of people here with the ethos of this place and having them help define it. You don't think you could take someone from this place and have like
I think that's one of the reasons I feel like I should. I feel like I should give people here an opportunity for their own professional and personal growth. And I think it'd be cool. I also feel like maybe it'd be defensive because I'll probably lose some people if I don't do something like that.
Right.
And if I can give them, and if they I wish what I could do, I wouldn't leave. I mean, I wish what I could do is go do this here,
What are you most afraid of? Are you afraid that the second place won't be exactly how you wanted it to be? Or do you think I feel like you could definitely do it.
What am I afraid of? I am afraid that I won't be able to retain the people who have just become so good from just doing this for so long, and then we'll have like a brain drain, and the people who come in just won't be the same, won't be as good. But I mean, I think that.
So you're afraid you're going to lose people because you don't give them opportunities,
right? And then the other thing is I've been out of it now enough of being in the trenches that I'm going to have to get back in the trenches, roll up my sleeves, and really get back into it. And I'm at a part in my life right now where I've got like young kids, and it'll pull me away from that. Like, I think when my kids are older, I'm going to like dive back in, and everyone is going to hate the fact that I'm like, oh, so, okay, Chris thinks he's back now. And I'm like, yeah, but luckily for me, it's my place, and I can just do it if I want.
Then you got to go open your own version.
Right, exactly. Right.
This is Ryan's now or something.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so that's like, yeah, all cards on the table. I think that's what it is. It's like, all right, you know.
I think a lot of decision making comes from a place of fear where you're afraid to lose
Totally.
people. What would you do if you what would bring you the most joy? Would it just to be make this place as great as possible, or would it be to have another place where, say, Steven's running it and he's thriving and excited, and it isn't exactly how you thought it would be, but it's his own spin on it, but it's still Beer Temple and he's happy with that? Would that bring you more joy than being able to grow this place in some way? And that would pay him the same and give him similar responsibilities? So try to make it from a decision of love.
I'm literally thinking.
Yeah.
That's why I'm quiet.
Yeah, I'm glad I asked you a really deep question on an audio format where
right,
it requires a lot of introspection.
Boy, oh boy. Well, so let me just out loud try to talk through what I was thinking and why I was quiet, because I didn't have the answer. It was like, what would I like to do? Would I like for like the Beer Temple to be, so in my mind it would be like, okay, this place is like, what would a dream be? Like in 30 years, 20 years, that this place is like legendary for X, Y, and Z, and it's just a place that is, people have like such like kind of love for just all these reasons. And then so that to me holds more like, pulls on my heartstrings more than like that place, like the beer cellar, not the Glen Ellen beer cellar, the one out on the East Coast.
Yeah, there's like
13 of them or whatever like that. Like if I had, like, I definitely could have, if I pushed it, like that could have been something I could have gone for,
Sure.
I'd probably have more like a sway. I'd have, in craft beer, if I was somebody who like had that kind of buying power and stuff like that.
That seems like something that's really important to you.
Yeah, it doesn't hold much importance
You're
to
talking
me.
about like a network of beer temples and
that like doesn't
regionally?
hold.
Like a chain, like a
regionally.
brand.
I think they're like
nationally.
franchised regionally, something like that. Like, does not seem
Well,
like that's what I would like. That would be my version of like. That'd be cool. I'd be able to retire, I guess, and then have a manager do it, and then I could like go do my thing. But like, I don't have anything else.
Wait,
to do.
you say go do your thing, right?
Right.
What's your thing?
I already answered
as
it.
far as I
don't
know
have
you
anything
so
else to
far,
do.
your thing is to be involved in this place.
Yeah, I don't have any.
At least for the time being.
Yeah,
well,
I play video games.
Don't
I guess. I don't know.
underestimate
Yeah,
the
you love
value.
Start playing video games.
Yeah, right.
If you are, I mean, you're talking about a kitchen, and then maybe we got into other locations and all that kind of stuff. If you're getting to the other location thing, don't underestimate the value of this place being the place to train those folks, like
Sure.
to run other places. And
Sure.
you have to, take care of those people that give them more responsibility. And I mean, money is never a satisfier, but increased responsibility is the longest lasting motivator. So
employees.
you've got a great model here that seems to be working. You've got good people that ask them to help you train the people that would be working at a location number 2, number 3, number 4. You know what I mean? It becomes a training ground because they've learned over the past few years on how to do it well.
Yeah, I think that's how I would love to do it.
Can I ask you another kind of difficult question? How much of you wanting to keep it in this physical location and the emotional attachments you want people to have and the experience they want to have is driven by your own ego?
It's probably, a lot of it, and a lot of it is.
And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with this because like it's important. It's your business,
Oh,
right?
sure.
And it's an
No.
extension of you.
It would be like, seeing like I don't know, like whatever place, like name a famous beloved business, retail business, like Franklin's Barbecue in Austin. Like being like, yeah, I started Franklin's, like something like that. Like that would have so much. I'd have so much pride, and I mean, I don't really care about barbecue, but I'm assuming the guy who started Franklin's does. And there is definitely ego involved
Which
in that.
I'm not saying is bad, but
Right.
Then should it change the experience you're trying to have if you have other locations, right? This is the full thing, and you have little Beer Temples Express, where you have the curation and you have the stock, but it's more of just like little spots where people can go and pick things up, and the experience is still to come here. Like, does it change how you think about the way you want other places to look, if you want other places to exist at all?
Boy, oh boy. I mean, oddly enough, that's a good word. Man, I'd seriously consider coming up with a different name than the Beer Temple if I did that.
Gotcha. I remember for a minute you were talking to me about opening a natural wine place that wasn't like the wine temple. It was just like a different concept entirely.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it the Beer Temple or something. Because there are some ideas I've had, and I was like, well, I wouldn't call it the Beer Temple. And then someone told me, like, if you're not going to call it the Beer Temple, then that's a sign that you're not behind it. And I was like, well, perhaps.
Who said that? Because I think they're wrong.
I forget. I mean, this is whatever.
I think they're wrong.
So
but it's not like look at restaurants. Is every restaurant that opens under a single restaurant group called the second version of whatever, like the Own an Engine 2?
Right.
No, they have different concepts and they have different ideas, and it's the same people and the same effort and the same amount of being behind it. It just serves a different area of the city. It serves a slightly different purpose. Maybe not every place is exactly the Beer Temple.
Right.
Maybe it's just another place that
Sure.
you can understand how to use your skills or the network, or maybe Steven or Ryan or Max has a different idea, but it should still exist underneath whatever the thing is you do.
One of the things to think about too is, do you want to be a maintainer? Or do you want to be a builder? There's great satisfaction in both.
Yeah.
And you got to think about. I'm not asking you to answer that right now.
I'm definitely a builder.
Okay.
Without
so that's an
a
answer
doubt.
to your question.
Without a doubt, I'm a builder
You think
because I
you get
suck at
bored
maintaining.
Yeah, exactly. I had a boss once who was a absolute builder, and he was best when shit was broken.
Right.
He was a fixer, right? As soon as he got stuff fixed, he found a way to break it. So he could fix it. I mean, it was like crazy. He was a great guy.
Right.
And
The
a great
people
leader,
who like start
but
the,
he was
the
not
arsons,
a maintainer.
they start fires so they can put them out.
Exactly.
Right, yeah.
That's what he did. That's exactly
Right.
right.
Yeah, no, luckily that's
That's
not
good
me.
self-awareness.
That's not me, but I tinker. I tinker constantly.
Sure.
I
Builders
mean,
will
a middle
get-
room. I'm always tinkering with this place and legitimately improving it. But now I feel like if I could start it all over again, I would now take this tinkering and be able to apply it in a different way, and just be, a lot more. I would know I know certain things that I'd want to do, that I wouldn't have done the first time because I needed to kind of live through it.
Right. You
Here's-
have to learn.
Here's
from
something for you to
bios.
think
Yeah.
about too, because I want to think about this, and this is a Drucker thing. They brought Peter Drucker into Service Master. They're from here. They're from Chicago, and they had 5 or 6 or 7 different kinds of businesses, right? And they brought him into the board meeting. He went around the room and said, "Tell me what business you're in." And everybody said, "Well, we're in lawn care. We clean buildings." They went around the room. He said, "You're all wrong. You're in the people development business, because if you don't have people that can deliver those services, you don't have a business." So I challenge you to think about being a developer of people if you want to expand,
Right.
because it's going to be dependent on developing people that can do it. I told Mike when he started Pipeworks, I said, your problems are not going to be beer problems, they're going to be people problems.
And
Right.
they
And
were
So it's
Yeah.
a people thing.
over and
Okay.
over again.
Develop people and start thinking differently about your people and how you can develop them to take on bigger roles if that's what you want to do.
Sure.
Expand.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
Yep.
So you decided.
I mean, the people here are ready. I mean, they're ready.
Yeah.
They
Right.
are. They're ready to take on bigger things.
Engage them in the design then,
Yeah. Right.
whatever you're going to do.
Yeah. So, yeah, the question now, I have a whole new question. It's like, well, is it a beer temple or is it something else?
Yeah.
If it's not a beer temple, it does open up things, but it also hinders me because there's other stuff that I am just woefully, even in owning a bar, like there's certain basic things that bars do, that liquor stores do, I'm sure that kitchens do, that like I will have no understanding or experience of. Like, ask me to pick a cocktail and pick any basic cocktail.
Can you
Name
make me
one.
a Negroni?
Singapore
Nope.
swing.
I don't know.
Can you make me an old fashioned?
I think so. It's like what? Sugar, Ango, bourbon, and something else.
Do you stir it or you shake it?
You stir it, right?
Yeah, you stir it.
You
yeah.
stir it.
You nailed it.
And then you put a cherry in it. But I think
Or
that's like
orange peel.
the
Orange.
orange peel. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. Like, I don't know. So there you go.
That's
I
not
don't
what you
know
guys
anything.
do. You don't
Right.
need to know that stuff.
Right. But the point is somebody does. I mean,
Sure.
Steven knows how to do it. He's gotten a lot better at it, but
Sure.
like because he's needed to.
And maybe you've already done this, but if you're going to open a kitchen and you say you don't know nothing about, I don't know nothing about birthing babies, Miss
Yeah, right.
Miss Scarlett, right? You got to find somebody that does.
Yes. But even I fly by the seat of my pants a little bit. It feels like that. So far,
It's all right.
knock on wood.
No.
We'll see.
Yeah.
I'm fairly risk averse as well. So
You know that's not true, right?
fairly.
In the spectrum of people,
Yeah, right.
you're not risk averse.
Well, don't say that because
Builders-
I already wake up in the middle of the night.
Builders take manageable risks,
Yeah.
reasonable
Yeah.
manageable risks. They're not risk adverse by any
That's true.
Right.
That's true.
Right. You
Right.
started this. You
Yeah.
expanded it.
I mean, my wife works for the federal government, and her
Right.
dad was a teacher. Her sister's a teacher. Her mother works for the government, and her sister works for the school district.
Right.
Like, they are not risk averse.
They are risk averse.
They are. I'm sorry. They are risk averse.
Yeah.
Yes.
You are not. You enjoy risk, but
Well,
it
it's
stresses
not that
you
I
out.
enjoy risk. It's the alternative is like wanting to stab my eyes out with a pencil.
Right. Well, you still have that every once in a while here. You've told me. But
Not to refer to the book one more time, but Collins talks about
the chapter where he stabs his eye out with a pencil.
yes, productive paranoia,
Right.
where you're constantly worried that something might go, but it's got to be productive. It can't be destructive. But there's nothing wrong with that.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's
Sure.
It's
I mean, early grave, but other than that.
anyway.
I think
Yeah.
you need
I'll
a little
get you
bit
the
of
book,
that.
and you got to.
I think you need a little juice.
And by the
Yeah.
way,
I think it's
getting nothing-
uncomfortable.
I'm getting no residuals from the book. It's just,
Let's fix
It's
that.
not at all.
He's giving a huge nod and a wink as he says that,
no,
by
no,
the way.
no, no.
Jim Collins
no,
sitting in the
Yeah,
corner
right.
with
I
a
just
gun in
am
his
a
head.
Right.
big
exactly.
believer in Jim Collins.
I think you need the juice.
Perhaps.
Yeah. I think I need a little bit of it too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate that. I
And
appreciate
I can
it.
help you through the book about how to create the structure to think through what you're talking about
Right.
after.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I would like to know what anyone out there feels about it. The ways to reach out are in the show notes.
About this conversation or about styles. What do you think about where's IPA and Pale Ale at? Where's Pilsner Lager at?
Or it's like,
Where's
you know what
Stout
style you
at?
didn't mention, but I really think is about
Yeah.
to explode or is just going to like die off
Or
is X, Y, and Z.
or personal experience with your travel through those styles, whereas something was so vibrant in your beer life, and then just kind of why it was no longer so,
Yeah.
or something that came into your life really
Yeah.
heavily.
Or how would you feel if you heard there was another beer temple? Would you be like, or would you be like, oh,
Cool.
or would you be like,
Or
whatever.
would you? What if you saw a wine bar that was run by the beer temple but called something else. What do you want?
Right. There you go. Anyway, if you are to do that, you can send us a letter, which would be amazing.
Physical letters always get read on the show.
3173 North Elston Avenue, Chicago, Illinois, 60618. Send it to me or any of the Shalals, really. Serge. Doug Shalals yet to get a letter,
That's
a handwritten letter written to him.
Pretty rude. He's gotten emails, though, from,
Yes.
from friends of the show.
Yes. But I mean, you, me, and Serge have gotten, handwritten letters addressed to us.
Some of the most flattering
Yeah.
things I've ever seen.
So, you just send it there, or electronic letters, also very much appreciated. Those go to insiders@craftbeertemple.com. Again, they're in the show notes. If you've already written out the letter but forgot the address, you can just go look there. You don't have to hit back, pause, listen. You don't have to do that whole thing.
Right.
And that'd be great. And thank you to everyone who does send that stuff. I think next week we're going to talk more about some of these styles. I think we kind of didn't get through them, so we have some more to talk about. Mm-hmm. Who knows? Maybe some other stuff will happen as well. Got some other fun show ideas coming up. Of course, we're gonna have the round tables as well. Got some guests coming up, which should be fun. So, yeah.
We got a very exciting guest coming up in a couple weeks.
Yes, very cool. Is there anything else that you would like to add before we get out of here, Doug?
No, it's nice to be invited back. Thank you very much.
You're
Enjoy
welcome.
you guys immensely.
Yeah, likewise. Mike, anything you would like to say?
No, thanks for coming on, Dad.
Aw. Serge, anything you would like to say? No, okay. He's already faded. He had it up, but he was talking to the mic, but he had it faded all the way down.
Too faded to talk.
Yeah. All right, guys. We will see you next week. Thanks so much. Talk soon.
Remember this is what we wanted. Remember this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again. Remember this is what we wanted. Remember this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again. Remember this is what we wanted. Remember this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again.